I'm a K-I-N-G, baby, I'm all you need. In the off-white Rari, baby, we run the streets. I'm a K-I-N-G, Westside royalty. I'm a K-I-N-G, baby, that's all you need. I'm a K-I-N-G, baby, I'm all you need.
Oh, there we go. Boom. All right. Welcome back, everybody. Here with Steven on my podcast, Get It. And today my guest is R. Swift. He also goes by Swift. He's a hip-hop artist, rapper. I've listened to his music for, I think since high school, to be honest. If not high school, then it was college. So it's been a long, long time. I've got, I want to say, seven albums.
Well, I've dropped more than 7, but yeah.
All right, so I have 7 or 8 of them, but you still hold the record for one of my top 5 songs. So, you know, I thank you so much for being here today and joining me. And you know, I know we live in a different type of world now, so I would say, you know, one of the things I love the most, especially talking to other people that have been successful in their own industries and have gone through the ups and downs and the journey. I love hearing about the journey. And one of the things I love starting off with is, you know, first off, how did you even get started? What made you want to get into hip hop and be a hip hop rap star? What made you what was the things that brought you into the music industry and then wanting to flourish in that industry?
You know, first of all, I'm originally from New York, right? And so I grew up and then, you know, I moved to Philadelphia and would always go back home to New York. And when I would go back home to New York, I would always hear like my cousins rhyming, and, you know, they had a little makeshift studio in the back of the house, and all the rappers in the neighborhood would come over there and they just smoking and rhyming. And I was always intrigued by hip hop, right? So of course, growing up in the hood, like you surrounded by rap music all the time. And so when I would go to New York, I would hear them rapping and be like, dag, I want to do that. And so I was about 11 years old, and they were all like in the back room just freestyling, and we call it a cipher. So they all going around and they rhyming. And I was like, so I walk up in there, I was like, yo, let me do it. And so they you know, they gave me space on a beat, and I just started rapping, whatever. And like before this, like I never came up with my own raps before, nothing. And then all of a sudden, I'm just freestyling at 11 years old. And when I did that, like I was surprised at my own ability to put words together. And my cousin looked at me like, oh, snap, like you got something. And my cousin Timmy, he really believed in my gift. He started calling me Swift, R. Swift, saying like it originally stood for Represent Swift, right? So like I was always quick to jump in something. So we started calling me Swift at 11 years old. And I knew from then on, like I wanted to make something out of that. Like I wanted to pursue like music and creating. I was born to create. That's something that I always felt. But now I just found the avenue to creating that was fulfilling, and that was music and hip hop. So
you start off with your family and friends doing this, and when did this actually turn into something where you actually, I mean, would you do release a mixtape? And I know that, look, for those of you listening and watching, we're older. So we were born in the 80s. And there was not iPhones and Apple iTunes Music yet. There were things called tapes, cassette tapes, and then there was CDs. So that's how we started. So how did you get your start? And did you just start putting stuff on cassette tapes, or at that point was it CDs?
All right, so At the time when I really started, like I could, like, mind you, you guys, everybody watching, like we didn't have home studios like that, right? This was back when recording equipment cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and you couldn't spend $200 to get you something real nice like you can now.
Right.
So I couldn't afford a recording studio. I was like 11 years old. Like my mom wasn't, she was barely like, she was working two jobs just to keep a roof over her head. And so she wasn't paying for studio time. But what happened was I was doing a lot of like little talent shows and open mics and stuff like that. And I was at about 14, I caught the attention of Def Jam, the record label, through some. They had like a little production squad that was in Philly, and they went to the talent show that I performed at, and they're like, "Oh, we want to put you on tour. We gonna blah blah." So I had them talking to me for a while, but my mom wouldn't let the deal go through. She wouldn't let it happen. But I caught some real attention, and that's when I realized, like, oh, so this is more than just a hobby. Like, I can actually do this.
Right.
And so, yeah, I started, I think I came out with my first, I got in the studio and came out with a maxi single on cassette. I think back in like 96.
Okay.
Like 96. Like I came out with like my first little, 2-3 song maxi single with the instrumental on the cassette. You couldn't tell me nothing. Like I was running through the streets like, yeah, you know what I mean? And then eventually, when CDs started like really, really popping, I moved over to CDs. You couldn't tell me nothing again. And I just started dropping music, doing shows, dropping music, doing shows. And eventually it got to the point where, years passed and like I started making real money. Like I started making money. And then it got to a point where I was making more money off of hip hop than I was at my job. And so I quit my job and I went full time into hip hop. And, it's carried me, and I still do hip hop full time to this day.
So after you release, so Def Jam doesn't pan out. So then where do you end up? How do things fall into place for where you end up next? Where do you end up next? And then where does that journey continue?
Well, so I ended up doing my music independently, put out some records and stuff on an independent tip. And then I eventually, after some years, my music became more faith-based because I became a Christian, a firm believer. And so I signed with Cross Movement Records after that, and dropped a couple albums through them. Then their label folded. And I started, sorry, I got like fruit bugs in my in my studio here. But so after I signed with Cross Movement, I put out a couple of albums under them in Sony because they were signed through Sony Music. And so I did that. And then after that, I went independent again. And I'm still independent now. I think like the whole record label thing, it was good for a season when record labels were good. But now, thanks to the internet, like the emerging of internet and social media has really like empowered the independent artists, and not just the independent artists, but the independent entrepreneur, period. Right. So like the social media age, internet age has allowed us access to the consumer that we didn't have prior to these big companies.
So with cross movement, so I was a big kid that was into the cross movement stuff. I listened to a little bit of everything, man. I was a huge Tupac fan, Biggie, but I grew up in a Christian home, and I grew up as a Christian myself and accepted my own faith at a young age. And so obviously wanting to listen to positive stuff, right? Not everything about shooting and drugs and stuff that, not trying to live that life, right? So, so I did. I heard cross movement, and really that's where I discovered you and a lot of other artists. And for a long time, cross movement was a juggernaut, an absolute juggernaut.
Absolutely.
And they had a huge base of artists.
Yeah.
So, they I guess, one of the, from the outside looking in, you see this label that has all these heavy hitter names too. Like McCrae was part of the label, Truth, Yourself, plus Cross Movement, the group, and all their independent stuff. You had Flame, who was doing really well. I mean, you just had this plethora of artists. There was a crazy amount of them. So what happened?
Well, two things. Now, number one, when you have this many artists and you are the juggernaut, it's hard for people to tell you anything. Like, when you're on top of the game, it's a monopoly. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody says, hey, you killed that, but you can do this better, you're going to look at them like, who are you? Like, I'm me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's like somebody going to Chick-fil-A telling them they can make a better chicken sandwich.
Right.
It's like, they're going to be like, who are you? And so I think it's hard to accept criticism, constructive criticism, when you're the juggernaut. So I think that was part of the problem. I think it was hard for people to accept constructive criticism. Number two, as times were changing, the industry was changing.
Right.
I think that cross movement failed to stay ahead of the curve.
Gotcha.
I think we were in prime position to stay ahead of the curve and really lead the transition.
Yeah.
But I think that the company, the brothers that own the company were, their thinking was a little bit more traditional. And like, for example, I remember when me and my boy Israel from Everyday Process,
which, by the way, those guys were fired too, man. I remember getting their album and oh my gosh, dude, I bumped that for months.
Yeah. Like, I remember we went to Wells, who was, over the label, and we said, look, man, we want to do a mixtape. Like, we just want to do some fire songs, some freestyles, and toss it out for free. Like, we're not looking to sell anything. We just want to throw it out there, on the internet for people to download for free. He was like, nah, yo, y'all trying to be like the world. Like, nah. And so he shut it down. And so we weren't able to do it. But I'm like, it wasn't that we were trying to be like the world. It was just that things were moving differently. And like, there was a way that we can kind of engage our audience and give them incentives for rocking with us.
Right.
Like, yo, here's some dope music that you ain't even got to pay for. And then what? A couple of years later, that's the wave of the whole industry. Everybody's putting out free projects and all that. And I'm like, see, once again, we had the opportunity to get out ahead of the curve, but they didn't have the creative freedom mentally to say, yo, let's try whatever. Like, let's just do it. And so, like, they were like in a cage mentally. And I think that lack of freedom actually hurt the label more than anything.
Right.
That we weren't allowed to move in certain ways. And
I mean, there was a period of time where when you guys rolled out, you rolled out deep. You had 15 artists under that label or more, and you guys were selling out entire sports stadiums. And I remember seeing that. And I remember even, I'd gone to some concerts in Southern California where they had literally sold out these 10,000, 15,000 people arenas. And it was absolute craziness. It was, and, Cross Movement came, all their artists, and you see them all on stage together at certain points. It was just, it was insane.
Yeah, it was a beautiful thing.
So you guys go to that and you're part of that movement.
Yeah.
When did things really just start to, because I feel like within like a year's time frame, they went from being juggernauts, all the artists scattered, everybody kind of left the label, like including yourself. So like Flame, Truth, even Cross Movement broke up. And
I think like
Baxter left, who was a founding member.
Well, you got to think. There was a lot of things that happened around that time. Like there was the incident with, Ambassador and Truth and the infidelity stuff, and like a lot of that broke at the same time. And then like if I'm gonna be totally honest with you, during that time, like when that whole situation happened with Truth and Ambassador and their families, like that really pinned people against us because they figured, well, if they doing it, we know the rest of y'all doing it. And so like, there were people taking our records out of the stores and there was all types of stuff. We were being banned, people wouldn't book us, and it was just a lot. And it got to the point where what was happening with them was starting to hurt everybody else's brand and their pockets. And so we all decided, look, hey, we got to get away from this. Like, this isn't healthy. And so, and then that with the whole lack of creativity and like freedom, it was like, you know what? Like, I think it's better if we all just do our own thing. And and so not to mention there were financial issues. Certain people weren't getting paid. The way the business was being ran was like not necessarily underhanded, but it was the old way of thinking, man. It was very old school, like the way things operated. And like, I think people saw themselves, like you saw yourself selling thousands and thousands of records, hundreds of thousands of records. You selling out all your shows, you're constantly on the road. But then when you find yourself begging for a royalty check. And you're like, well, wait a minute, something's not adding up. And so, like, I think people just got tired of that rigmarole and say, you know what, like, it's time for me to break off and go independent. And I think a lot of us decided that at the same time and just went for it. And that was the beginning of a lot of people's independence and the end of Cross Movement Records as we know it.
And so then from there, you have Lecrae, who starts Reach Records, which is to this day still a powerhouse.
Yeah.
Flame leaves and starts his own record label, which has had success. I know that Truth and Ambassador went to another label. I don't know what happened to Everyday Process, but Lecrae took guys with him. He took DJ Official. He's passed on now. I know Trip Lee was featured on his early stuff, which was through Cross Movement. He signed Trip Lee.
Well, let me just rewind the tape a little bit. Like, Lecrae actually had Reach Records before he signed the Cross Movement.
Oh, okay.
So Reach Records was already formulated before he signed the Cross Movement. The Cross Movement deal was to propel Lecrae to another level so that he can in turn bring Reach Records to another level, right?
Got it.
So Ben and Lecrae had already had Reach Records going, and they had dropped the album, Lecrae's album, Real Talk. was under Reach Records first, and then when he signed to Cross Movement, they re-released the album under Cross Movement.
And then Lecrae brought in Pro for a while, or Derek Minor now, who has his own label, and he's been killing it too.
Yeah, Derek Minor,
RMG.
I love him, man. He's and again, he had RMG before he signed with Reach.
No, I know he did. Yeah.
And so
now seeing that, right? Seeing that side of things. So seeing what Lecrae did with Cross Movement and how that propelled Lecrae. And at the time, Pro, now Derek Minor, I knew he had RMG, but he signs and does a few years with Reach, which propels him to new heights, and then his label and his artist to new heights.
Absolutely.
Did you ever have any of those opportunities yourself? And if you did, why didn't you want to take them?
So I never signed with Reach. There was a small window to where we were talking about some things, and we were trying to partner in some ways. I don't know exactly how that would have ended up looking like, but we did have conversations about that. At the time, there were some suggestions made for me artistically that I just wasn't feeling. And so I chose to stick to my guns, and that's it. Me and Lecrae are good brothers, and we live close to each other. Like we go to the same church. Like that's my dude. We just haven't ventured into the music business together. So I've, when I signed the Cross Movement Records, they went downhill after I dropped like two albums with them, 2-3 albums. They went downhill. For a short while, I signed with a music group called Exist Music Group, and they went downhill. And I have a bad history jumping on the burning ships, I guess.
Well, Cross Movement wasn't a burning ship when you hopped on, though. It became a ship.
It was a burning ship. I just didn't realize how much the fire going on until I signed. Because there were internal issues with Cross Movement before I signed on that eventually played into the demise. But I guess in my personal opinion, like I never got a fair shot.
Okay.
And I have to live with that, and that's cool. Like the important thing is that I don't deny myself the fair shot, which means I do everything in my power to keep myself going, to keep my music going, and my legacy going.
Well, another thing, too, is so many labels have come and gone, right? Like Death Row was a thing; they don't exist. You have, G Unit was a thing; they don't exist. No Limit Soldiers was a thing; they don't exist. No Limits had 3 different No Limit type labels, and they, all these powerhouse labels through the years in this industry have come and gone. And the only, to be honest, man, the only ones I've ever really seen like weather the storm was like Bad Boy. Like P. Diddy's a businessman. My wife and I always joke about it because he's always in the background doing like hype stuff, because we love rap, man. We got, old school rap, and but it's like, dude, P. Diddy, like he figured it out because to be honest, he's one of the only labels that has just survived.
Well, I'm going to tell you why. Bad Boy didn't survive. Bad Boy crumbled with the rest of them. Diddy survived. And because Diddy survived, he screams Bad Boy on everything. I can't remember the last time Bad Boy record label actually dropped somebody's album.
Okay.
They don't release music. Like Diddy is a personality, and he's always going to be in the forefront. Therefore, Bad Boy will always be in the forefront. Okay. Even though you can't even think of the last time Bad Boy came out with an album. And so, like, he survives.
All
Just
right,
like Rockefeller.
so you got Aftermath that is still survived, but Aftermath obviously came after Death Row and all that, and you got
Yeah.
Shady and I don't
Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah, so you gotta have these other labels that came later that are still hanging on. Do you think those labels will just disappear over the course of time as well?
I think certain labels will survive, but they won't be powerhouses no more. I think we have saw the end of the powerhouse era.
And is it because people are going more independent, and so we're just going to see the rise?
Yeah, I think it's just easier to move records independent. It's like, you don't have a label telling you what you can and can't do. Like, you don't have a label that you have to worry about, like skimming all your money and you try to figure out how you're going to get paid. And, a label just taking everything. And it's like, it's really through Instagram, Patreon, and, just all the Facebook, like all these avenues that give you the power to control your content and to control how your audience gets your content. Like, you have distribution chains like United Masters, and you have, of course, TuneCore and CD Baby and different people like that, DistroKid, that are making it not like and a lot of these are starting to become wraparound services. So it's like, not only will we distribute it, but we'll also track your publishing for you, and we'll boo. So sooner or later, these companies are going to be wraparound record labels where they do everything a label could do except invest money into your project.
Because I would say now too, we're seeing the rise of white rappers, which is something that is really new, and they all seem to be independent, right? Like Macklemore and Ryan Lewis, NF, Tom McDonald. There's like all these guys that are coming, and they all did it independently.
Well, first and foremost, let's not act like white rappers is a new thing.
Let me ask you
white
this.
rappers been around as long as black rappers. You got Beastie Boys. Like, you got to think, one of the main contributors to hip-hop, period. The reason why hip-hop exists today is partially due to an old white man with a beard down to his belly named Rick Rubin. And so, like, Rick Rubin made everybody's beats, from LL Cool J to Run DMC to, Beastie Boys. Yeah. Like, Rick Rubin gave them their sound. And
funny because, obviously from the outside looking in, right, the only white rapper I ever saw my whole life, basically from high school, was Eminem, right? Oh, well, I know KJ52 was big in the faith-based world. Okay, so those are the two. Those are the only two I knew. Until and go back, I don't listen to a lot of new stuff anymore. I listen to a lot of podcasts now, and I have kind of my little artists I like, and I'll listen to them. But NF, I heard one of his tracks.
Yeah, NF is a beast.
Like, bro, I heard him probably 18 months ago, and I bought every album he had off one song. Because I was like, dude, this guy, there's no way this is an accident. I just bought them all, and he's phenomenal. But he's independent, right? He's been independent most of his time.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
This story hurts my heart.
Okay.
Me and NF were label mates.
Oh, really?
We were signed to the same record label. And I remember as soon as I was about to sign to the label, I called him. And, at the time, he was just NF. He was a kid. He wasn't getting no shine, nothing. And he still was hopeful for the best. And he was like, man, I just can't wait to put out some music. And, I was just like, man, you're going to get your shot, young man. But the label ended up dropping NF because they had no idea what to do with him. I saw it. Everybody else saw it. Like, yo, this kid could be a freaking star. If they push him right, this kid could be a star. They dropped him. Said, said, okay. I say maybe a couple months after they dropped him, Capitol Music picked him up. Capitol Records. And Capitol took NF, dropped a few songs with him, and then you didn't hear from him for a while. And then he came back as a completely different rapper. And that's the NF that you're hearing now. Capitol Music helped him be that person. And so, like, again, like I jumped onto to a burning ship, and NF avoided the damage. Well, he didn't avoid anything. They dropped him, which was the dumbest mistake ever. Like, even when I talk to those label dudes now, I'm like, y'all gotta feel stupid for like what y'all did to NF. Like, but they just didn't have the mental capacity to see that far down the road.
Yeah.
And so, like, NF went to Capitol and killed it. And now I think they restructured his deal. So I don't think he's an artist under Capitol anymore. I think they distribute him.
But he does his own thing.
Yeah, he does his own thing, and they kind of distribute him now. And like, I've seen many reports and stuff that NF is the fastest growing artist in the world.
I saw that actually. There was a thing on him. It was only about a 15 minutes through Facebook or something. Mm-hmm. And it was basically like his, they called it the quick rise, but they said he is the fastest growing rapper in the world, and that he's broken. Like, they said, like, he in 1 year he broke like 25 records they didn't think that would ever be broken, and they were held by like guys like Eminem. And so, good for him. I've been listening for a while. So, my wife bought us tickets to go see him for a gift to me. And of course, we're in the coronavirus, so the show got bumped. It was supposed to be last month, I think. And it got bumped to August, but we'll see. We might not get to see him, and that sucks because I've been really looking forward to seeing him. I think he's a pretty phenomenal artist himself. But so through your journey, through all these, I mean, the music industry is crazy, and I know there's no way for us to dive into the craziness of it. But what has been your ups and downs through this? Your memorable moments, things that you've really enjoyed, and I guess what kind of advice too can you really just offer people that are trying to get into it now? Just focus on themselves and going independent, or trying to link up? Like, I guess walk us through those, but start with your journey of like, what have been the best moments so far? What have been the worst? And what have been some of those, I guess, memorable moments that you've got through your career?
Okay. So I think the best things that I've experienced is, of course, the traveling and meeting new people and doing things I never thought would be done. I think one of the highlights for me personally would be back in 2001, when 9/11 happened. I wrote a song dedicated to America, dedicated to our troops and all that, to give people some encouragement, right? Build our country up, build our people up. And I sent that song to a whole bunch of radio stations, again, independent, no label. Sent the song to a whole bunch of radio stations and news stations. And we got contacted by the Pentagon. And they said they wanted us to come and perform the song at the Pentagon. I was like, yeah, right. So I ignored it. I didn't think it was, realistic. Long story short, we ended up going to the Pentagon and performing the song at the Pentagon.
That's cool.
It was crazy because when this happened, the show at the Pentagon, I had just met my wife.
Okay.
And so we were in the beginning of the dating stage.
Yeah.
And I was able to take her with me.
That's cool.
So I mean that was a stunt right there. Like I flexed hard. Like what? Look, I asked her, what other man have you dated that could take you to the Pentagon? I mean, take you to the Pentagon and you watch your man perform in front of elected officials, huh? Yeah, so that was a humble flex. But and so that was a kind of a highlight, like, man, like, number one, that's a place I never thought I would be, not alone performing there. Another high point was a couple years ago, I was in Atlanta here and my Twitter started going off the chain, and like I had like over 500 something mentions on Twitter. I'm like, what's going on? And so I look at Twitter and say, yo, you on national television, bro. You blah, blah, blah. The UFC, somebody walked out to your music. I said, huh? And then so I looked and saw that Ben Henderson walked out to my music. He was the UFC champion at the time. And so, like,
you didn't have to have permission for that?
Huh?
You didn't have to have permission for that?
Well, eventually, yeah. But like, but he walked out on national TV or pay-per-view to my music. And I'm like, oh, snap. And so I hit him on Twitter and DM'd him, say, hey, congratulations on your win. Thank you for using my music. And so I'm thinking he ain't never going to read it. But he actually hit me back, and we exchanged numbers, and we started talking from there. Then EA Sports hits me up on Facebook and says, hey, we want to use your song for our video game, for
nice.
the UFC video game. I'm like, yeah, right. But next thing you know, I say, okay, I give them the thumbs up. And now the song Awesome God is on the UFC video game, whatever year that was, that came out. And so, like, again, just like being faithful, like, just real quick, I recognize that the gift of music was a gift to me given by God, right? Mm-hmm. And so when a gift is given to you, you have a responsibility. You have a few responsibilities, 3 mainly. The number 1 responsibility is to utilize the gift.
Right.
The number 2 responsibility is to protect the gift. The number 3 responsibility is to grow the gift. And so when I had the gift of music, I said, man, like, I'm going to utilize it. I'm going to protect it to the best of my ability. And I'm going to make sure that I grow this gift, which means I'm a better rapper now than I was 5 years ago. Right. So when I get ready to write and I'm really trying to get in the zone, I got to start with the right soundtrack to get me inspired. And as far as lyricism, I'm going to give y'all my secret. One of my biggest inspiration as far as lyric writing is Marvin Gaye. So I vibe out to Marvin Gaye when I'm about to write. Got my frankincense burning. Vibing out to Marvin. Then I'm about to turn it up and hit that mic right there and get the business. But first, I got to vibe. It don't get much better than that. All vibes and inspiration. And I think that doing those things put me in places that I wouldn't normally think that I would be. It put me in places that a dude growing up in the hood selling dope at 14 years old wouldn't be. Like growing up in my context, dodging bullets and selling dope, my goal was to make it to 18.
Yeah.
My goal was to make it to 21. I didn't know that my music would be embraced and supported in multiple countries, that I would headline tours in different countries, that my music would find itself on the NFL, the UFC, the MLB, and like I would get on national TV and, be a part of 2 Grammy nominated albums. Like, I never know that my music was going to take me to these places.
Right.
But like, and even to this day, my goal is to be grateful for whatever happened in life and happens in life. I had a lot of downfalls. I had a lot of high points. And if I never reach another high, I'm grateful for the highs that I have reached. And so like, that's my mindset, is try to keep a level head, stay consistent, know that, hey, another high point is just around the corner. It can be at anything when you least expect it.
And so, I'm big on work, like you got to work hard, right? And to your point, I fully believe God gives you gifts and it's your responsibility to do something positive with those gifts, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I also, look, I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, well, God gave me a gift and he's just going to take care of me and I'm just going to sit here and play video games all day, right? Like you got to do stuff. And I'm a huge proponent of work. And we've talked about this in the past too. I'm not going to say I'm a workaholic because I know what that is too. But I work hard for what I do, right? I put in the time, the energy, the effort, and you've done a lot of that. So, I think that we live in a world, maybe things will change a little bit now with the Corona stuff, but pre-Corona, a lot of people just thought, oh, I'm in existence. I made something that a few of my friends liked or some strangers liked. Like I'm gonna be the next big thing. You've worked really, really hard to achieve what you've achieved and to get to where you've been. So for people that think this is, you make a couple records that a bunch of people are gonna like, I mean, that's not the journey, right? That's just the start, and the work hasn't even started yet. What does the work side look like? What did you put in? If you could say, at some of those peak times with the travel, the shows, how many hours a day were you working between traveling and stuff? Like, what were you doing?
Well, I put in a lot of work. And so I think my mindset during those busy times was like, yo, do my shows, come back to the hotel, throw on a beat. I don't care if you write one verse, like be productive. And that was the main thing, is because it's our natural inclination to get comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I didn't want to do was get too comfortable.
Right.
And so, I put in a lot of work. And even when I was signed to Cross Movement, and they had we had big, $1 million studio, and we had the whole state of the art thing, and 3-4 different studio rooms and stuff like that. Even when we had that, I was in my mind like, all right, I need to build a setup at my house. Mm-hmm. Like, I need to learn how to do studio equipment. I need to learn how to record, mix my own records. Like, I need to know, like, if their studio shut down tomorrow, I need to be self-sufficient. Right. And so, like, that was my whole thing, was learning how to be self-sufficient. So I bought my microphone, bought my laptop, bought the, Pro Tools, Logic, all that. And so right after I taught myself, like a week later, we got a notification that Cross Movement was shutting down the studio.
Wow.
And everybody had to find their own way.
Yeah.
I didn't I didn't complain a bit. I went right back home and started recording. And so, like, it's like, it's not just working hard, it's working smart. And for a season, I was doing a lot of hard working, but it wasn't smart. And so now I'm doing the smart work and the hard work. And I'm realizing that if I work smart, I don't have to exhaust myself as much as I did if I just made
it is that combination, man. And that's something I had to learn the hard way too, right? Was people don't hustle and grind the way I do, right? There are a few, but we're talking like it ain't that many, man.
Right.
And I had to get to a point too where it's like, bro, I'm working so stinking hard. Like, I gotta learn to be smarter, man. People started telling me that, like, bro, your work ethic isn't what's the issue. You're not working smart enough. And I had to really and going back to like, I'm always big on personal growth and development. So like, I have this whole library next to me of books, like the 10X Rule by Grant Cardone, which is phenomenal. Mindset by Carol Dweck, which is also a phenomenal book. I have The One Thing, phenomenal book. I'm reading this book, Scale Up, right now. All these books, and I'm always big on personal development. I'm trying to and listening to other people that are successful and are in those millionaire circles, and they say like the top people read 20 to 30 books a year. And I'm like, all right, that's so my goal. And I have some learning disabilities, which don't slow me down at all. But reading for me takes longer. So
me too.
For a normal person to read a book, they can probably bang it out. Like let's say for your average Joe, they read a book and it takes them 4 hours. Well, that book's going to take me probably 12 hours. I'm going to reread a lot of it because I need to really read it a couple times to understand things.
Yeah.
I'm off the Richter smart in certain areas, but so for me, reading just takes longer. So if I can knock out 10, 12, 14 books a year, I'm happy because I got a lot from those 10, 12, 14 books and I applied what I learned. And that's going back to that working smarter thing, which I think is so important for people to understand. Like, look, you can work hard and you need to work hard. Nothing wrong with that at all, but you got to work smart. You got to take the time to invest in taking what you learn too and applying it. But the smart aspect is something that people, you hear all this, and in music, you hear everybody, oh, I'm a grinder, I work hard. Yeah. Like, that's great. You got to be smart too, man. That's so important.
Yeah, what you said is so smart. There's some friends of mine, they were putting me on and they were saying, Swift, like, you are such a smart dude. Mm-hmm. And you've navigated through life. And dumb people don't get to do that. And they challenged me and said, but you got to read more. And I have ADHD. So I'll sit down and read 10 pages. And if you ask me to recite or regurgitate what I just read, I'll have to read it 2 more times before I can do that.
So I'm actually in that boat, and I have dyslexia. So I have kind of a double-edged sword, but what I've learned is I take out my iPad, and I can actually grab it right now. So I have my iPad, and so on this, I have this app called Pages. And what I do is on this, for my books, I just have a thing that I've scheduled book notes. And so when I type in book notes, it comes up, and it's the books I'm reading, and it's my notes. So as I'm reading books, if I can actually find, I'm actually going, this might help you because it's really helped me. And I go in and I'm actually writing down the stuff that I need to take away from it and apply to myself. And it's been really, really good doing it that way because I'm reading and then I'm writing down right away. And then I go back into that later at the end of the day or at the end of the week. And I take, okay, I've learned all this stuff. This was the stuff I took away and I learned from it. And now I'm applying it. And as I did that, that was the number one thing in my own life that helped my businesses flourish like wildfire. I went from having small businesses mostly run by me, maybe a couple of employees, to blowing them up, having 15 employees, having partner, or if I have it myself, hiring directors, growing my directors and managers, and continuing to to grow and grow and grow in different areas. I mean, that for me has been one of the best things I've ever done. And so for you, it might actually be a really good idea. Take the iPad or an iPhone or something and just plug in your notes as you're going. And then it takes away also part of that having to always reread stuff. Don't get me wrong, I still reread things. If there's a really good concept or something, I'm like, man, I need to read that one more time just so I get it. And then I plug that in too. I even will put in too, because I mark it by book. So I'll put in like the 10X and I'll put my notes. I'll even put what page it was. And I'll say it was page 273, when I put in the thing. And then I can just go find it pretty easily. But that's been super helpful for me. And it really has helped me grow. And because of that, it's also helped me grow in building more businesses and being successful right away with those businesses.
There's 3 books that I'm actually on right now. One is called The 4 Disciplines of Leadership.
Okay.
Another one is called Who Took My Cheese? And I know. And the other one is called Contagious.
Okay.
And so the Contagious book is a book based on marketing. Okay. And I know Nipsey Hussle, he read that book to start his company. And so I'm trying to commit to reading more and to being more still and having time.
Reading helps a lot. It does make a big difference. But
absolutely.
You brought Nipsey Hussle, so I've obviously heard Nipsey, and I actually just started hearing his stuff right before he died. And then, I've heard a million theories about it, right? He died and then the whole community went up and, it was because of this, that. Do you have any, people in the music industry tend to know a little bit more than people outside the music industry.
Well, we know that there was, the person who did the shooting was, he's actually, he's obviously in custody. And so people have conspiracies about what his motivation was.
Right.
Like, I think the irony of the whole situation is when it happened. It happened the day before he was supposed to have a meeting with the police chief. Like, they were supposed to have a meeting, and Nipsey Hussle came up with a way to, basically dead the gang violence. He came up with a program and a way to dead the gang violence, and he was supposed to get up with the police chief to discuss his plans. So the day before that meeting is when Nipsey got killed.
Right.
Some people say it was a conspiracy by the LAPD to get him killed because they thrive off of gang violence arrests. And is it that type of thing? Is it a government thing? Some people say it's a rival gang thing.
Did he still have gang ties?
Of course he had gang ties.
Let me rephrase my question. I'm sorry.
Was he active?
Was he still actively involved?
I don't know. I won't speak on that. But okay. He had Crip ties, and he had people around him that was Cripped up, but he was his goal was to make a way for everybody, not just Crips. You know what I mean? I think he was trying to dead a lot of that, and so a good amount of people around him was trying to dead a lot of that too. But obviously everybody's not always all in. So, there were different conspiracies about the reasoning behind his passing, but long story short, no matter what conspiracy somebody leans towards, a man who navigated through the street life and came out the other side and was trying to do good for the community and was trying to educate people and empower people was taken away way too early.
Yeah.
This dude built a computer lab to teach coding to people in the hood. And I'm like, that's revolutionary. And like people in the hood need to know because, technology is running the world.
Yes, it
So
is.
people in the hood need to know about IT and coding and stuff like that. And we don't have anybody bringing that to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So it takes somebody who has the love for the neighborhood to introduce them to that.
Well, and then he had that thing. I watched that show Hustle and Flow on Netflix, where he was on that. I think it was the first episode, and then obviously he passed away. But he had like a music studio too, or music school that he founded, and he was running, and that's where they grabbed a couple of their artists from to start off. So that was, it's tough, man. It's tough when you see people who do turn their lives around and and start doing things the right way, and are finally like you said, on the other side of things, and then they get snuffed out. It's heartbreaking. And it's tough because too, like kind of what you were saying earlier. When you're associated with people that do bad things, you're now viewed in that same light. Yeah. People are so quick to point out your faults, and it's not. I mean, we're talking to everybody. I don't care what you believe. I don't care what God you follow. I don't care if you follow no God. Like people are so quick to throw stones and hold back grace. But then when finally, he was making so much positive movement, people were taking that like, all right, maybe he's really, and then, it sucks to see that he obviously passed away and not in a good way. It's tough. It's tough because it's like, I'm big on positivity and helping.
Yeah, of course.
And just, dude, we're all people. One of my big things, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm obviously a basketball coach, right? I grew up, in the hood and all that fun stuff. And I don't care what you look like. I really I'm a believer. I follow Jesus, but I don't care what you believe. I'm still going to love you the same. If you're gay, I'm going to love you the same as if you're straight. I don't, my job in life is not to judge. My job in life is to love you and to be there and show you what true love really is, to love you unconditionally and hopefully make positive changes in your life too. And I love when I get to see other people doing that. I just hate when, obviously, like the whole Kobe thing, and he was really making some positive changes in a lot of ways too. And, obviously his helicopter crash with all those little kids on it, which sucks. And I knew Kobe, and it's tough, man. It's a tough boat to be in. It's tough when you see people that go too soon that are really doing positive things, but it's also motivation for guys like myself is like, look, I'm going to keep making positive differences in the world. I'm going to keep making positive change. I'm going to be that positive voice. I'm going to make that noise, and I'm going to do it till I draw my last breath, and
that's the thing. Like, what's our legacy going to be? You know what I mean? Like, we could talk about Nipsey Hussle, and, his legacy is solidified, and you look at Kobe and his legacy is solidified, and, but we're still here.
Yep.
And so we have to make sure that when our time is up, when people look back on our lives, like how much gold will they be able to dig up from our archives? And you know what I mean? And that's the thing. Like I take, Nipsey and Kobe as an inspiration. Like, man, Nipsey did so much in a little bit of time that he had. You know what I mean? Like Nipsey was young. Not only that, but he wasn't in the spotlight for long. You know what I mean? Like he was only in the spotlight for like 3 years for real. And he was able to do so much in his short amount of time. That inspires me. Like, man, while today is still today, get your behind out there and motivate and serve people and grow.
So I have another question for you. Look, at the end of the day, I don't care what you believe, who you are, what your skin color is. I love everybody. I think that's incredibly important. I think we as a human race need to embrace that. We're all the same. That's just the end of the deal. Just because you're dark and I'm light doesn't mean that there's any real differences. We bleed the same. We have the same heart that beats in our chest. We have the same brain, the same emotion capacity. Like there's no difference, right? And I want to make that a point before I ask this next question. One thing I've been seeing a lot of in social media within the last couple of years is and it doesn't matter if it's a prominent figure or not, but for people in the Black community, I see that when a person dies, we've had a couple of kids out in the LA area that have died. I always see everybody posting, gone too soon, young king or young queen. And I see that now as a very regular thing when a person that is Black passes, regardless of the situation. Everybody, young king, young queen. And I feel like there's so much positivity, and they really give positive build up to this young individual. But I don't see that same energy poured into them while they're growing up. What is that, like, maybe shed a little bit of light on that for us, because it's something that I've seen as a trend now. And here's the other thing too, again, I see it as a trend, not that people are truly invested in those people's lives beforehand. It's great. Everybody can throw up young king, you're gone too soon. But what did you do for that person to let them know that they were a young king or a young queen?
Well, first of all, I'm going to push back on that a little bit.
Okay.
We are, like, me personally, I call every Black man a king. I call every Black woman a queen, while they're alive. So, like, if I come to you and I'm like, yo, peace, king, was good. And I think it's important for me to address my people as kings or queens, because, like you said, we all have the same heart. We all have the same blood. So we all are the same. However, we're all not treated the same, and we're all not addressed the same, and we don't all have the same rights and the same access.
Right.
Therefore, if you're a person of color, nobody's going to call you a king but me. Nobody's going to treat you like a king but me.
Mm-hmm.
The system isn't going to treat you like a king. Society's not going to treat you like a king. Mm-hmm. So it's my responsibility to remind you that you are royalty and you are worth everything. And so I let them know that while they're alive. I let them know that when they pass. However, it's not that we address them more like that when they're gone. It's just that it's not newsworthy when we address them like that while they're alive.
So then that's something, and I know that you do it, but do you feel that's something that the community as a whole does on a regular basis?
I think it happens more than you think it does.
Okay.
However, but it's like, it's the same. Like, negativity travels further and faster than
than positivity. 100%.
Like, if you have a dude in the hood who sells drugs and is shooting people, more people are going to know about that faster than the dude in the hood that has a free educational program.
Right.
That's going to travel a lot slower.
100%.
And so I think that the way we consume it is a result of just how it's been being seen. And that is that one happens more frequent than the other, when in reality, it's not that it happens more frequent than the other. It's just more publicized.
I got you. That's fair enough.
I think that's the issue is with social media, like, there's certain things that will always be more highlighted than others.
Got you. And that's fair. And I agree with that. And that's, that's what I was wondering. Because obviously I have a lot of, I'm a basketball coach, bro. Half the kids are Black, and I'm always investing in, like I said, in every kid, right? And my big thing is you always present yourself with respect, because you will always get respect. Like, every single kid in my program, I don't care what you look like. It's young sir. It's young ma'am. Mm-hmm. It's, always about also the mental side and knowing your value, right? And investing in that side too. Basketball is a tool to empower and grow young people to be the future of what our future will be, right? And I use that and know my role. It's there to positively invest in the youth and to bring them up the right way and to be that coach that they can look to and be like, dude, this was the coach that made a positive difference in my life. But, you know, I really appreciate having you on. It's been awesome. And is there any words of wisdom you want to impart to those that are trying to come up in the music industry right now? As we've got about 5 minutes left.
Yeah. My advice to anybody would be, I know it's cliche, but it's important that you know who you are. It's harder for me to say know your worth because people have different ideologies of worth. But like, know who you are, and no matter what you do, and no matter what comes your way, like never lose sight of who you are. Because like whether you are rich or poor, at the end of the day, you have to look in the mirror and be satisfied with who you see. Regardless of whether you're satisfied with your bank account, whether you're satisfied with your other resources, like when you strip it all away, you have to be satisfied with who you are at the end of the day. So don't lose sight of that, no matter what. And yo, money's good, popularity's good, but when you die, it don't die with you. It stays here and it sends you on your merry way.
And how can people follow you on your journey as you continue in life? Where can they?
Yes, hit me on Instagram, Twitter at official R Swift, RSWIFT, official R Swift on any social networks, I guess.
I appreciate you, my man. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. You're with R Swift and Stephen Beseda on Get It. And my Instagram is the same as always, SSBESEDA. And I love all the interaction I've gotten so far. Please, if you want to contact me, that's the best way to get a hold of me. And I respond to all my messages. Again, R Swift, thank you so much, brother, for joining us today.
And
I'll look forward
to
seeing how that journey continues. And I'll be in touch with you soon, my man.
Yes, sir.
Take care.
Yeah, you too.